Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the Pursuit of Precision podcast. Today, we had the opportunity to interview Chuck Collis, the Vice President of Health Systems at BD Medical, one of the largest medical technologies company in the entire world. It was an incredible conversation. Enjoyed so much of this. I know you're going to take a lot from it, from the corporate background that he had in sales. There's so many different things to be learned. So let's head to that episode and get going. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pursuit of Precision podcast. My name is Ryan Jaros, and over the next 12 months, I'm going to be interviewing 50 of the most successful, intelligent, influential, and ultimately happy people I can in order to hear their story and share with all of you what I learn along the way. So today we have our guest, Chuck Collis. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. We know your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you being here and excited to learn all about kind of what you've went through to get to where you're at.
I appreciate the opportunity, Ryan. Thank you.
Of course. So we always start off by bragging on the guest to start. So if you're okay with that, I'm going to kind of give him the quick headline of what Chuck Collis does and where he's at currently.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. All right. So currently, Chuck serves as a director of corporate national accounts and as a vice president in health systems with BD Medical. This is one of the largest global medical technology companies in the world. Chuck has worked with BD Medical for just under 27 years, beginning as a medical surgical sales consultant. That's a tongue twister. Scaling to management roles within the Midwest. Next, roles managing at a national level. And now finally creating massive impact inside upper management within his incredible role in a worldwide company. So clearly he has scaled his way up and by no means just started at the top. So I'm very, very excited in your case in particular to kind of see how you scaled your way through, because I know from a number of conversations with others that there's a long list of people that probably started in the same exact position that you did and are not in the position that you're in now.
Yeah.
So
I've been very fortunate.
I want to pay credit to that, and I'm excited to learn lots. So tell us a little bit. I always like to hear from you guys as well in regards to what your job actually looks like today, because there's all these big words and long explanations for the definition of what your job is and what it looks like. But I want to hear from you as someone, obviously, who's doing it on a day-to-day basis. What does your job look like? What is your position currently?
So my role is presently I have responsibility for overseeing like contract management for about $2 billion in contracted revenue for the U.S. region. And so we have a primary customer that represents about 1/3 of all the hospitals here in the U.S. And so I have responsibility to make sure there's growth. There's terms, there's conditions, there's pricing discipline, there's approval processes, but it's been a good journey, and I've been in that role since 2015, and I love it. Great company, great people to work with, great customers. I've been very fortunate, truly.
And what is can you go into detail a little bit about your day to day? So in regard, that's the big answer of your responsibility. What does your day-to-day typically look like? Is it a lot of traveling? Is it a lot of meetings? What does it look like?
Yeah, typically, you know what? Again, I'm very fortunate just because I've got great support internally, externally, a lot of on the road, a lot of conference calls, with a lot more traveling prior to the pandemic, but it slowed down significantly. But I'm still probably on the road 3 days a week. And we focus on some of the larger deals. So I support our field selling organization. We probably have about 3,300 sales professionals in the U.S. And so I have overlap and have responsibility for those individuals. So, and making sure that there's pricing discipline and contracts, terms, conditions, and planes, trains, and automobiles. But it's a good run.
Yeah. So you're ultimately creating the guidelines that your sales representatives can sell within. Is that correct? Fair to say in a way?
Yeah, we have to be very careful because of the market share in which we have at the organization that I represent is high in market share. So there's always that threat by the FTC as far as monopoly, and so we completely stay away from that. We're always supportive of saying that we promote, choice, and we like competition.
Yeah.
But we also would have to adhere to terms, conditions, profitability, and making sure we don't set precedents for things that we can't live with 5 years or 10 years from now. A lot of the deals that we negotiate are anywhere from 5 to 10 years, and they can be anywhere to, 5 million to 75 million. It's got some long runway. We have to be very careful.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing, there's a lot of pressure and responsibility that comes with your role. It's obviously not super simple, small deals. These are massive contracts that I'm assuming take, sometimes are there some that have extended past a year to close?
Oh yeah. The sales cycle on this is anywhere from 18 months to 36 months.
Wow.
So, but you're talking capital investments of, like I said, $75 million.
Yeah.
So they're pretty big. And fortunately, there's about 10 of us that have executive signing privileges. So every deal that's negotiated, I have to sign. Mm-hmm. So I have to make sure that there's nothing in there that's going to throw a flag up or take me out at the knees when it goes to leadership even further up the organization.
Yeah. Okay. So to me, like I said, I'm always looking at this as an outsider, and that seems like a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety that comes with that. But at the end of the day, as I noted here, you scaled your way there.
Yep.
And so this wasn't something that you just woke up with this talent to be able to manage and control and feel comfortable, confident making a $75 million deal. That's not something you were born with, right? And so that is what I want to spend some time kind of highlighting today, is the cycle that you went through in your career to be able to get to that position and some of the lessons and things that you learned in order to get comfortable to be there.
Absolutely.
So in that vein, I want to start with what I always ask the question this way: what was ground zero like for you? What was it like when Chuck Collis had no money, maybe minimal confidence? Paint us a picture of what that looked like. What was the car you were driving? Where you were living? I want to paint the picture for everybody at home that it wasn't all sunshines and rainbows.
That's funny. So I was a Buick Skyhawk, and I was fortunate though. Before I came to the organization I'm at, I had 2 years of selling experience, and I was in office equipment. So I sold copiers.
Okay.
And I always wanted to get into healthcare because I thought it was so glamorous, and everybody talked about, how lucrative it was, and there was a great opportunity. And so I did fairly well in selling copiers. I had great mentors, and truly it just kind of evolved.
And when was this? How was this?
This was probably
in college, after college?
Right out of college. So I've had 2 jobs since I graduated from college. And like you said earlier, I've been with the organization 27 years. But prior to that, I was selling copiers for about 2 years, knocking on doors and just getting my butt kicked. But you know what? It developed some thick skin and cold calling, and it was a good journey. But I was really successful at selling copiers, and I was probably making at 22 over $100,000, and this is like 1995.
That's awesome.
And when I took a job where I'm at today, they started me off at $26,400. And my wife was like, "You're crazy. Don't take this offer. Why are you're rewinding back?" And I'm like, "No, this is a journey. This is a path I want to be on."
Yeah.
And I thought that I would be at the organization like 2 years as a stepping stone, and just through organically promotions, opportunities, I never thought that I'd hold a VP of a U.S. region title or position and have $2 billion in contracted revenue responsibility.
Yeah.
But it's been a good run. I can't complain.
Yeah. No. So I want to get into something you talked about that I am now hearing in several interviews that we've done now: cold calling, door knocking, things of the ground zero that are very difficult, but it seems to have paid off very, very well for a number of different people. And so I want to hear a little bit from you what you learned from it and why you think that was so valuable, getting into starting there and then starting with BD.
No, absolutely. It's interesting because a lot of people are apprehensive to do the cold calling. Mm-hmm. I actually thought it was great because it was character building. You had doors slamming in your face. You had to be quick on your feet. You had to pivot. And it was interesting because when I transitioned from copiers, we didn't have to cold call. We have significant market share with the organization that I'm at. So it was vastly different. We were selling more on clinical excellence. But the copier days was just character building. It truly was. And you know what? Being passionate, tenacious, and just having the discipline to get out there every day, hit it hard, and don't take no.
Yeah. What gave you the courage or the confidence to be okay with that, though? Because I think that's not, there's a lot of people, I believe, would rather not be told no and not fail than to go and learn the lesson and go through the adversity it takes to do that. Who taught you that?
But I think if you never fail, then you're never learning, right? Part of failure is learning and growing and evolving and making sure, well, I'm not going to replicate that again. We're not going to do that again. But I had a great mentor when I sold copiers. And actually, it's interesting. You know, I left there obviously 27 years ago, and I still have correspondence with him. I see him every Christmas. We do a holiday.
Is he still selling something?
No, he started his own company, so he's much more successful. But we've all evolved. But no, he was just a great mentor. I mean, truly, personally, professionally, he engaged the team. He made everyone want to aspire to be better, to do better. He connected with the families. Most of us were just kids out of college, too. Like I said, I was like 21, 22 years old. But he had just a strong presence and influence and a solid business acumen. He was a bright guy and probably too bright to sell copiers.
Well, and that's what I was going to get at that stood out to me most is that people's egos get in the way in so many different situations where it's like he treated selling the copier's fax, whatever it was at the time, just like he was selling something that was millions of dollars, right? He treated it with that level of seriousness. And honestly, you may have not had gained the experience without him taking it as serious as he did, and maybe showed you that regardless of what you're selling, whether it's medical field or whatever you would have turned and taken those skills to, you took it just as serious.
No, absolutely. And he knew my end game was to get into, outside sales, customer interaction, build a resume, and transition into healthcare. And he was 100% supportive of it. So I was very fortunate. He knew what my plan was. I had a plan well before even getting into healthcare. I knew that was something I wanted to do. And it wasn't for the money, but it would just, again, it looked like it was something that I enjoyed. And I thought it was.
So I do want to go to back to that place also. So when did you start configuring this plan? And this might take us even further back than where we are with the copiers right now. But was this in college or? Yeah. Okay.
Probably sophomore year in the fraternity house.
Okay.
Over a couple beers.
Where did you go?
Well, that's a whole nother story. I finished at Wayne State, but I was at Lake Superior State, Albion, went back up to Lake State. Fraternity ran into some issues. You might want to delete this. So the organization got into a little bit of trouble with some hazing, and then I ended up finishing down at Wayne State.
Got it.
But no, I wanted to get into healthcare. I was probably, we were in the house, and everyone's like, what do you want to do? What do you want to aspire? And I always I thought pharma. I wanted to be a pharma rep. I thought it'd be great, right? And then I realized after I got out of school and I started selling copiers, I had an opportunity to interview with multiple companies. And I was fortunate because I had the success of them, behind me on copiers, but I also had a great mentor that helped coach me and take in the right direction. And I went on the device side versus the pharma side. And I am so thankful. And that's no disrespect to any pharma reps, right? Just device, in my opinion, was my comfort zone.
Well, in all fairness, though, I think that based on the demeanor that you carried through selling copiers, I think regardless of what you would have chose, regardless of what it was, you would have done very well, and regardless of what that looked like, whether it's real estate, whether it's med device or pharmaceutical or whatever direction you wanted to go. I think, and I hope that as we talk through this discussion today, that we're going to learn a lot about the things that you did learn that could be applied to whatever you end up going into. So
absolutely. I think the one thing why I selected where I'm at today was the gentleman that he was the regional business manager that hired me, and he was a product of the gentleman that I said was my mentor selling copiers. They were like twins, clones.
And this is your first year at BD?
Yeah, this was my first year, and he was just engaging, wanting to be supportive. He would always advance other people above himself, always looking to make sure that people stood out or they were getting all the development that they needed. Great man. He's still with the organization. It's funny because you start to see people as your journey, as your career expands, and people stay here, and yet, but they can still be a mentor, right?
No, and
they
that's
can still
but
be
that's
a role model.
it's very important that's a very important point that I made early on, is that I want to talk about some of the reasons and situations that allowed you to grow and scale to where you're at. Because like I said, there's a lot of people that I'm sure started in the exact same position that you started in and didn't take it as far as you did. So I do want to get back to where we were talking about the plan, because I think that's a sticking point for a lot of people. And I think that there's a lot of people that stay at that phase through their 30s, through their 40s, they still haven't figured out what they want to do, why they want to do it, right? So what would be some advice that you would give those that are looking to kind of pursue a career, choose a career, or find what fits right for them?
Well, I think you got to make sure that you develop a plan, right? And make sure that it's realistic, it's practical, but you need to make sure that you're obtaining the goals in order to support to get to the plan or make the plan come to fruition. So, it's agnostic to the industry. It's just about a desire and a passion that you have, but you have to make sure that you've got some type of executed plan on how you're going to get there, right? It just doesn't happen organically or willy-nilly. It happens through hard work, discipline, and just patience, aligning yourself to somebody that can actually help you evolve, develop, be critical, but yet be supportive. It's not just, there is some dumb luck that comes along with it. I've had a lot of that. I'll be the first.
Dumb luck happens when you work hard, though. So let's not get that twisted.
I've had some dumb luck, but you know what? Fortunately, I think it's being honest, being ethical, having integrity, and
that speaks to your longevity. Let's be honest. That speaks to your longevity, because at the end of the day, that you don't work at 27 years with a company as an accident, right? So
no, but you know what? I think the one thing that I share, even with people in the organization, BD now trying to evolve into a higher position, is don't let the organization dictate your career path. You build your career path. Because I think back then it was more of, okay, this is what we're going to do. You're going to be promoted to a sales development manager. Okay, now you're going to be promoted into strategic accounts. Now you're hindsight now, I should have probably been more aggressive in pursuing different careers within the organization. But I would always say control your own destiny, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
Work the plan, stay the plan, and be the subject matter expert in what you can, so people come to you as a resource. And that's what I tried to do throughout my career. I mean, each and every role that I had, I wanted to make sure that I was a resource to somebody.
Yeah. Well, and speak it too, right? So think back to the copier days. You were starting a new job and you're telling them what the next job's going to be. So be vocal about, this is what my next step's going to be, because they can start to provide you with tools that will get you there, because they know where you want to go, and they might be willing to help you accordingly.
Absolutely. And I firmly believe success breeds success. If you're successful and your mentor is successful, they're going to want to see you succeed, and they're going to help you evolve to get to that position. So, it's just finding that right person, and it doesn't even have to be in your industry.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a boss. It can be somebody it could be a neighbor. It could be somebody from the rink. It can be anybody, just somebody that's going to motivate you, inspire you, and make you look at things through a different lens.
Yeah. And so at the beginning, when you were so inspired to have this plan, I'm curious, what was the fire? Where did that fire come from?
I honestly, I just thought it was glamorous. You go into a doctor's office and you see all these people dressed in suits and bringing in lunch, and I'm like, you're talking clinical. I'm like, I can do this.
Yeah,
I got this. And I think a lot of it was just, it was something in my mind, probably at 20, that I thought, oh, this is the job.
Yeah.
Hindsight, now that you're on a plane 3 or 4 days a week, it doesn't look as glamorous, but it's still been a good journey.
No, that's good. Well, I want to get into scaling through your career now.
Okay.
So let's get into that first year when you started with BD. So that one point you made is very interesting to me. So when you first interviewed, I know a very common question that they'll ask is, so what were you doing before? And I'm sure, I mean, it could have come up that this is what I was being paid. This is what I sold. This is how well I did, blah, 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 blah. Did you pitch them that?
Absolutely. And you'll laugh, honestly, Ryan. The first thing I did with the interview with this gentleman that's the mentor at BD, and he's still a mentor to me, even though we're on different levels. I showed him my W-2. I'm like, okay, $125,000. He's like, we're never going to match that. I'm like, that's fine. Just guarantee me that there's a path to get there. And how do I get there? And but no, that first day, I'll never forget on the interview process, I was making sure we interviewed with multiple people. We're very stringent on who we bring into the organization, even to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, and the organization was significantly smaller 27 years ago than it is today. But I made sure that I worked the room. And I knew I wanted the job. After multiple companies, I knew that I wanted to work for him, and I liked the team in which he represented. So I was connecting. I was trying to dial it up with everyone that was involved in the interviewing process. And it was making sure that I had the brag book, I had all of the sales, I had the history, and tried just finding out, a little bit about everybody that I was going to be meeting with prior to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting response that you had there, though. And I think it's a very key point to make here is that you go from making $125,000 so would that have been your first year out of college?
Second. It was right around 80 or 90 my first year.
You go from making that to willing to make a sacrifice to make less intentionally in order to get to where you wanted to be eventually. And so I think it's very, very important for people watching to understand that it's not always going to be this incremental, perfect scaling growth your entire career. You might have to make sacrifices or make changes along the way for the betterment of your future, right? You saw the future that you had long-term, not just how can I make the next buck? And I think that's a very important point to make, because I think people get caught in the what's the best 12-month plan for me, and not where is this going to lead me? How is this going to help me provide for my family for 20-something years, right? That's a huge difference. So is that something you had in your mind? Is that how tell me how you kind of thought through that and why you were so comfortable just dropping your income at that level?
Well, because I knew that I was going to be making a big transition, and it was an adjustment for my wife and I, because obviously we're going from six-figure income down to $26,000. And there was variable comp involved in that. But you know what? I went to Rob and I'm like, I have a plan. How do I get to making this type of income to support this plan and to continue? And candidly, it took a couple years, but I got there. Yeah. In hindsight, looking back, I know this goes to everybody, but I'm very fortunate because that number looks vastly different today.
Yeah, no, and it also looks crazy that you were willing to do that, though. I think you're underplaying that. I think that takes a lot of courage to say, that's less than 50% of what you were making. That's crazy that you were able to have enough confidence in yourself to pursue a path that's going to give you that long-term growth that you got. So
yeah, but I think when I reached out, when I was interviewing, and like I said, I was interviewing with multiple companies, although there were offers that were greater, I think more importantly is I asked about the cultural integrity, the integrity of the organization, how it was branded, how it was represented, what do the consultants look like? I mean, these are the things that you want to ask when you're going into any interview, right? What is the culture? What is the fit? What are the expectations? And through that, everything kept coming back that BD is best in class. Yeah. And I can say wholeheartedly, I believe it. I bleed it. It's in my blood. Yeah. We are best in class in everything that we do.
Would you say that, and this is just something I thought of as you were kind of talking through that, is longevity more valuable than, I think people look at pursuing a job differently. Some people might look at it as, how much money is this company going to offer me, and then I'm going to take it to the next company, and the goal is to just scale. But in reality, when you look at working for a company for 27 years, what you made over that consistent time is always going to be better than trying to find the next dollar. Is that very, very important for people to?
Absolutely, but I think often, and people will say this at work, I'm a unicorn here, because most of the people do not stay
Okay.
at BD for
So they start
27 years.
and then,
they leave. And then I think also if you look at the educational background, most of my colleagues are, they've got MBAs, PhDs, clinical. And so I've been very fortunate that I started off carrying a bag in Detroit and getting promoted to be part of a U.S. region and having $2 billion in contracted revenue.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of it is enjoying what you do, working a plan, loving what you do, working best in class, but also enjoying who you work with.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. I've got great colleagues, and we rely on one another and we support one another, and it makes a huge difference. But BD is truly, I can't imagine working anywhere else.
You've committed for a long time. I can't imagine that you'd be willing to at this point. But so walk us through. Let's see what was year one like. What were your responsibilities? What was it? What did it look like as you were scaling from that 25 all the way back up to where you were at? How long did that take? What did you do? What was the plan that he told you needed to ultimately follow in order to get there?
He said, work your tail off. And I did. And it was interesting. The first year, I was very fortunate. I won Rookie of the Year. But again, the organization was much smaller. When I look at, so my customer that I represent for BD, we do about 1.7 billion. That day back when I was hired, we did about 485 million. So clearly we've come a long ways through acquisition and so on. But my point is that I tried to, when I was in the field, be the subject matter expert. Just won awards, attempted within 2 years, I was getting promoted into a sales development role. Every year or every other year, there was an opportunity, and I through mentoring and through coaching, I would align myself, and fortunately, the career continued to expand. So it wasn't like I was stagnant. I've been in this role since 2015, and I don't want to do anything different. So let that be known. I'm not going nowhere, and I'm comfortable with the role I'm in.
Yeah. So obviously you were pushing the limits and really giving it everything you got in those early years to prove yourself and get back to that level, right? Mm-hmm. What are some of the key things that you think you learned early on? Because I'm sure you got kicked in that time, just in the same way that you did when you started selling copiers previously.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I was all hands on deck. So at the time, I was a surgical sales consultant for BD, and we had a very small, narrow portfolio. So, I mean, we had sharps collectors and impregnated scrub brushes and stuff that people have no idea probably what I'm talking about. But I had everybody. I had my father helping me hang sharps collectors in hospitals. I had my pregnant wife hanging sharps collectors. We were determined that we were going to be successful and we were going to make money at BD, and did everything possible. But again, it went back to being the subject matter expert on NIOSH, on sharps disposals, just becoming credible not only to your customers, but into your internal organization and the people you represent and work with.
Yeah.
And
so in regards to, obviously sales is a huge background that you carry here. How important do you feel, and med device might be different than some of the others because they are being used in a medical setting versus others, but how valuable is really knowing your product in and out in regards to a sales role?
I think it's critical, but I think most importantly, and I say this all the time, and BD knows this, and the people that work around me know, don't compromise our 126 years of integrity or mine. I'll take you out at your knees.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I take what we do very seriously. I think our customers expect us. They hold us to a higher standard than our competition. Yeah. But more importantly, it's being honest, being ethical, doing what's right. And I think that just the good nature of that will allow you to aspire to great things. Yeah. At least in our organization. I mean, being the subject matter expert is important, but there's only so much you can know, and constantly our portfolio is evolving. And so, you can't be 100% everything to everybody.
Yeah. So what this made me think of that as well. While you're in that phase, how old were you? 25 maybe?
Yeah, I was 24. Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
What was it like, first off, to be that kid that everybody thinks knows nothing because you're just getting started? Yeah. And how did you kind of get through that? How did you start to build some credibility? Was it just working more hours? Was it showing that you actually did come prepared, knowing your product, knowing everything that they wouldn't expect you to know? Or how did you get through that? Because I think that's a huge hurdle that just look at young people in any industry whatsoever. The 23 to 25-year-old range where you're just getting started, there's a lot of older, experienced
Absolutely.
veterans that are going to give you a tough time.
No, in hindsight, it's funny because I look at the kids, they're not kids, they're adults in the organizations now, but I'm like, I was one of those kids. And now I'm the old guy. And it's interesting. I think what's more important is people see your character and your integrity. And they see if you're passionate, and the customer sees that too. And it's pretty transparent. If you want to be the best that you can be, you're going to have people there to support you, then they're not going to be pushing you down. Occasionally you'll find somebody that's going to try to suppress your career, but you know what? If you keep sticking to the plan, the path, it'll evolve. It'll come together. But I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, I mean, you definitely did. It's just, it is a very tough phase for a lot of people. And I just wonder if did you have any mentors that were at the time talking you through saying, listen, this is a temporary thing. You just ultimately need to see it through. Was there anybody that was there to help you and give you that experience to say, I've been through the phase that you're in, it's going to be okay? And that speaks to how important a mentor would be, I would assume. But
absolutely. And it's interesting you say that because my mentor at BD was he sold copiers for the same company. Unbeknownst to me, he had been with the organization BD for 5 or 6 years. So I never ran in paths with him when we were, working at the same company. But it's just, when you find that mentor, it's something that just doesn't go away, right? It's not just because of work related. I mean, I've worked with him for 27 years. He's been with the organization 35. He was at my son's wedding. He's involved in everything. And I make decisions even today. If I'm apprehensive, I texted him last week, do you have 5 minutes? And, even though we're in different parts of the organization, he's like, I like that. That's a good plan. You still bounce things off people, right? Because you know what? It gives you a different lens to look at. And maybe sometimes you need a different perspective. But if you trust that mentor, they're going to guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think that phase too, now that you're talking about it, it's kind of a time where you think you're the only person that's ever dealt with that situation. And I think it's very comforting to know that there are other people that have been through the exact same thing and they can say, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge that you had someone that even past and before BD was doing and going through some of the same struggles that you did. I think that's crazy that happened to be the case.
Yeah, and the funny thing, he has so much passion and energy, as do I, and I think often, when we're in corporate settings, people are like, "Oh my God, that's a mini Rob," and I take it as a compliment, right? Because you know what, he's coached me, he's mentored me through my 27 years, and I probably wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today if it weren't for his guidance and my persistence. Right? They go hand in hand. It's not just all of you. It's a plan and it's support on that plan.
Yeah.
And building a network of people within the organization or outside or whatever you want to do to help you evolve, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that they're giving you sound guidance and leading you in the right direction.
Absolutely. So I want to get now, we're going to scale our way through here. So
okay,
you start off doing very, very well as an individual. All you got to worry about is you.
Yep.
What did that transition look like from sales as an individual to now I want to help others do this? Now I want to support others. Now I want to be responsible for their performance. Now I want to take on all this new challenging stuff. Was that something that you knew you wanted prior? Or was that something that, as you said, they said, hey, this is the next step for you, or this is what we want for you?
It was more of them saying this is the next step.
Okay.
Candidly, and even the organization would say, I'm better at an individual contributor because I'm so focused on what needs to be done and how to do it. And I have to realize, and I remind myself daily, that everyone has a different work ethic and everyone has a different passion. And so I can't hold people to the same standards that I hold myself to. But it can be challenging when you have people, you're trying to guide people to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And
And so I want to hear all about that transition then, because it seems like it wasn't a natural one or one that you foresaw for yourself whatsoever.
Not at all.
So that's cool. That's exciting to hear though, because again, I think there's a big thought behind the fact that everybody just knew that this was going to be their career path and this is what they were going to do and everything was going to come naturally to them, right? A lot of people will look at someone that does very well in sales and just say, oh, he's a really good people person. It's like, we all know there's a lot more to that, right? And you starting off as a sales professional never would have guaranteed or you would have ever thought that, okay, now I've got to manage a bunch of people, right? That's not part of what I signed up for. So I want to hear a little bit about the beginning of that transition and some of the challenges maybe that you went through at that time and what you learned and some of the things that you gained through that.
It was probably so upon the promotion into that, I was a director of corporate national accounts. I had 6 people reporting to me. It was the most painful 2 years of my life. And I hate to say that, but it certainly forced